Hello there all, and welcome to That Anxious Gamer. Today we're going to be looking at Stormgate, and I'm going to be doing a trailer reaction. A little bit about me: I was a StarCraft 2 veteran. I played StarCraft 2 for between about 10 and 11 years, starting in about 2010, 2011, so right after beta, and playing all the way into late Legacy of the Void. I peaked at Diamond 2, almost Diamond 1, so that's around 4,000 MMR. So I'm by no means a pro player, but I'm in pretty high elo, and a pretty low percentage of the players get to that rank. I just want to kind of give you my thoughts about the trailer, and I'm going to be doing a really deep dive because I've already signed up to be a creator, content creator for this game, and so we're going to be looking at every little feature, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts as well as what I think the game is going to go. Like where it's going to go and what is going to be included, how the game is going to play. Is it going to be like StarCraft 2? Is it going to be like Warcraft 3? So anyway, I've never seen this video. We're going to be diving right in. This is totally blind. Let's go.
XO Rally Championship might be racing its way across the stars, but it's already raced its way into my heart.
Okay.
Anyways, if you're not aware, I've got something of a history with the real-time strategy genre.
So let's stop right there, guys. First thing I want to note, for those of you that do not have real-time strategy experience, who is this guy talking? This is Day 9, a very, very famous StarCraft Brood War and later StarCraft 2 player and content creator. He used to have the Day 9 Daily, which is basically his daily updates in early Wings of Liberty, which is early StarCraft 2. So this would have been from years maybe around like 2010 to like maybe 2013 or 2014, before Heart of the Swarm. So yeah, he's a very famous player. He did win some, I believe, North American championships for Brood War. So that's who this guy is, who's actually presenting the game. So this is something that he's pretty close to. And I just wanted to give a little background about who the actual presenter of the information is. This isn't just some random announcer that doesn't know anything. So let's keep going.
And funnily enough, at labs like DeepMind, those same RTS games just so happen to be a valuable testing ground for world-leading AI research. Curious. Can it be just a coincidence, then, that I'd end up the kind of man to name himself an AI visionary? I mean, probably.
Okay, that was kind of a bad joke. Obviously RTS are very important for like DeepMind AI research. This whole thing I think should have just been cut. This was kind of a bad gag in my opinion. Let's move on from it.
What's no coincidence is my excitement for the eagerly anticipated RTS from former Warcraft and StarCraft devs at Frost Giant Studios. It's
Here we go.
Stormgate.
Here's the meat.
And today, we don't just get the chance to get some exclusive first look at some Stormgate gameplay, but we're also joined by Frost Giant's president and game director, Tim Campbell, here to tell us exactly how Stormgate will delight all minds, artificial or otherwise. Thanks so much for joining us, Tim.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
Now,
All right, so here's Tim Campbell. I believe Tim Campbell was either a Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 2. I believe he had something to do with those, but I'm not sure. I was back more with the competitive like team like David Kim and the like. So I'm not sure exactly who Tim Campbell is in terms of his relevance. But let's see what they say.
I've been following Stormgate for years, but for those of us who haven't, what is Stormgate?
Stormgate is our modern take on the classic real-time strategy game formula. It's
Okay, so let's pause right here. This, if you look at this, this is a classic mix-up of Warcraft 3. A lot of these, like the woods, how kind of colorful it looks. This is a very Warcraft 3 kind of look. But if you actually look at the units and the health bars, you see these units right over here. Looks like they have health and shields, very similar to Protoss and StarCraft 2. So I'm really getting the feeling that this is going to be a classic matchup between Warcraft 3 aesthetics, but actually StarCraft 2 design elements. So you see these very similar to siege tanks, like Terran siege tanks are firing these, it looks like AoE projectiles. So they're firing AoE projectiles. So on one hand, you have what looks like a mech army, kind of like a Terran mech army, firing AoE projectiles, very similar to siege tanks. And in the other, you have much more bio. I believe these bots here on the back with the purple shields, they could be medics or some healing unit, because this is very similar to how a medic would look in StarCraft 1 or a medevac would look in StarCraft 2. So let's keep going.
what we think of as a spiritual successor to franchises like
Now, I want to note too, if you look at these units right here, the red units near where the artillery is, these units actually have like some green glowing shields. So I don't know if that's some sort of AoE heal or like an AoE passive, but it looks like we definitely got some AoE going on here. If you look on the right-hand side of the screen, we definitely have what looks like to be this medic healing one of these, what looks like to be Marines. This looks like very classic Terran bio, guys, from StarCraft 2.
Warcraft, StarCraft, Command and Conquer. And real-time strategy games are the type of game where you can control an entire battlefield. So this classic RTS formula includes harvesting resources, building sprawling bases, commanding huge armies on the battlefield.
What is it about Stormgate that's new?
Okay, let's pause here. So what we can see is 8-click micro. If you actually look right here in the bottom right-hand corner, guys, you can see this army, the red units are actually 8-clicking on the ground and basically stutter stepping. This is a very common tactic, especially for Terran bio in StarCraft 2. While you have what looks like Zerglings almost, like it's these dogs, but it looks like very similar to Zerglings. So this looks very similar to the Terran versus Zerg matchup in StarCraft 2. And is something you're going to be seeing almost every single time. Normally, you would be having like Bailings, and you'd be having medevacs for the red units and Bailings for the blue units. But that's what this looks like. So this looks like very, very, very classic StarCraft 2, guys. Because I've been hearing some people say, like some of my friends say, hey, this is more Warcraft 2. For me, just from my first impressions, I'm getting a very StarCraft feeling. So let's keep going.
We believe that the RTS genre is something that should be enjoyed by players of all skill levels. And so we've put a lot of effort into making sure that Stormgate feels good, whether you're a pro with high technical skill and you love competitive play, or whether it's something that you just want to be able to relax with and experience a story.
Now, Tim, I understand that you brought, for all of us, but in particular for me, a present to show today.
So one thing I want to say about this skill gap thing, this is something that's always been a problem with the RTS space. I personally like this, but most people are not willing to put 3 to 6 months. And that's what oftentimes it is, guys. I started out in Bronze. I never had any RTS experience. I started out in StarCraft 2. It took me about 3 months of daily play to get out of Bronze. That is a huge time investment. I would say something on the order of like 75 to 150 hours. A lot of people are not willing to do that nowadays, especially. So Stormgate, both by being free to play and I think lowering the skill floor a little bit, it's aiming to onboard more people. And honestly, even though I don't like that in conceptually, the problem is I realize that it's probably a smart business decision because they have to be able to onboard enough people since it's free to play to actually make the business model sustainable. So that's my thoughts on that. Let's keep going.
What are you going to show, Tim?
We are going to show gameplay from the pre-alpha of Stormgate.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that we are big believers in at Frost Giant. We want to share.
So I want to note something about this pre-alpha, guys. You can already sign up for this. I will provide a link in the description. You can go and actually sign up for the alpha that is supposed to be releasing sometime next month in July. I've already done this. I've signed up for the creator program. But if any of you guys actually want to be involved in its development, and if you're watching this video, you probably do. You probably already know about this, but I just want to let you fully know. So let's actually see what this gameplay is that they're revealing.
This current state of the game today.
Let's take a look. Oh, Tim, I'm so excited. And right away, this looks like an RTS. Tell me what we're seeing.
This is the classic start to a 1v1 match. What you're seeing here is the human faction as they're sending workers out to harvest resources.
Okay, so I want to pause right here. It looks like we have 2 resources that are being collected. You can see this, what looks like gold or lava is being collected by workers. This looks very much like SC2, but it also, the base building, this definitely does remind me more of Warcraft 3. You definitely have that kind of like cartoonishly big buildings with kind of a background that's a very Warcraft 3 aesthetic. It looks like we have 2 resources. We have this resource up here and we have this resource up here. This resource very interestingly looks like some sort of rock or like mineral, and it has 4 workers. Now, for you guys don't know, Vespene gas in StarCraft 2 generally required 3 workers. So this is probably the scarcer resource. This is probably the more common like minerals in SC2. So let's kind of see what's going on with the base. It looks like this would be very similar to a Terran Terran command center, so like your main command center, where you're making workers. And then it looks like there's 2 production factories. This looks very similar to a factory from Terran and SE2. This looks much more like maybe like a supply depot. So let's see what's going to actually happen here.
They're starting to construct building. They actually build them by 3D printing them from the ground up. And you can see them now starting to train troops so they can have an army.
So by 3D printing, this reminds me a lot of StarCraft 2's Protoss, where the buildings are actually warping in, like warping from Aya. So this is kind of very, very similar to that. Now, if we look at the bottom here, it looks like the command card is very, very classic grid layout. You know, you have your QWERT, that's your classic grid. So it looks like that's going to be the case. We have this, I believe this is going to be the mineral equivalent, this little gold mineral here, 242. You see a game timer. You see that the mini map is going to be in the left, bottom left. So sorry if my camera's kind of hiding that. But let's see if we can make sure that you guys see that really quick. So I'm going to move myself over to the right here. So you can see the mini-map is in the bottom left here. So that's going to be revealing all the information you need about the map in general. That's a very, very important element in pretty much any RTS. That's going to be super, super important. So that's definitely, it looks very similar to StarCraft 2, guys. So I'm going to move myself back over and let's continue on.
That goes out in the field to fight.
Yeah, and I mean, right here, we see in the corner coming up, this is...
Okay, so we see that the dogs that we seen earlier are from the human faction. So remember those that we were fighting, those Marines. They have 120 hit points, it looks like. They don't look like they have any shields, and they're called a scout. So it's probably a very basic early game unit that is just there to kind of scout out and basically be like cannon fodder, very much like a Zergling. It looks like everything here below the command card, so like below our grid layout command card, we have attack on A that's extremely similar to StarCraft 2, exactly the same. S looks like a stop command. D is that defense, and you could probably set a rally point, is what I'm thinking. And then you have F. F, I'm not sure what that is. That could be a rally. And then G looks like patrol. This is used in StarCraft 2. Like if you want, for instance, I want a unit to patrol from this building here over here, I can use the G command and basically have that unit patrol back and forth. So that's what it looks like to me right now. Let's keep going.
This looks like a scout unit?
Yeah, that is literally a cybernetic dog with laser eyes. It is called the
Okay.
Scout. Okay. It's
cybernetic dog with laser eyes. All right.
Right. And you can see him now running through the base trying to see what information he can find out about his enemy.
Yeah, I mean, scouting and information is such an important part of RTS games.
It really is. And this is something that we've embraced.
So this is something that you see all the time in Warcraft and StarCraft, where you have 2 little units. This is more an APM challenge. As you get higher and higher ranks, you're not going to see a bronze level do this. And if you do, it's generally a huge mistake. But as you get up in the Diamond and Master, Grandmaster, you're going to see 2 players actually micro units. And this is more just APM trying to shave off small little advantages.
Early game, the Scout unit has been designed so it can actually sense units beyond its sight radius. So it's
awesome.
especially.
So one thing I wanted to notice right there, let's go back just a moment here. And we see that this food, so a lot of times in Warcraft 3, people, and StarCraft 2 was this way too, but it was more a Warcraft 3 thing, people would call supply food. And so if you look at it, actually, they have a bread icon, which is basically food, 20 of 40. So I'm thinking this 40 is your total supply cap. This 20 is the supply we're actually currently at. Obviously, we've already explained the rest of these being, this is the minerals, and this is the Vespene gas equivalent. That's the rare resource.
So it's especially useful early on.
So we're heading into what looks like the first engagement of this game. What are we seeing?
Well, what we're seeing right here is the Red Scout getting surprised by a group of...
So this is interesting, very interesting. This is more like Warcraft 3 than StarCraft 2. You obviously have woods, so terrain that certain units can move through, but certain ones cannot. This was also a thing that was very prevalent in StarCraft Brood War, where you would have certain places that only like probes or scouting units could get through. So this is kind of interesting here. This is very bad for red. This is normally when you have blue had like an early rush, and now you have like, looks like, I believe these are the workers of red that are fighting. So let's see what actually happens. But I'm thinking red may be massacred here.
Troops coming through the light force, which is the new train type and the twist on the tactical battlefield.
Yeah, and you can see that they're constructing what is in essence a StarCraft 2 bunker. This is normally a defensive structure just to survive with minimal units when you're doing a fast expand. But if you look, the blue actual fighting units are absolutely massacring these workers.
Here.
And how do these light forests work?
The light forest lets smaller units move through them. They have concealment. It's allowed blue to raid red's base.
Okay, so there you go, light force. So these light force regions basically can allow small units to go through, but big units to not go through. I really like that, guys. I think that's a fantastic design decision because that's something that a lot of people praised in Brood War, but were very critical with in StarCraft 2, was that you couldn't have as many small encounters and one big fight determined the outcome of the match, which was less true in Wings of Liberty, but as it went on in Heart of the Swarm and Legacy of the Void, that became very, very much the case. And so absolutely, I think that's a great feature. It's going to contribute to more smaller fights and less big engagements that are game-winning or game-losing. I really like it.
In which case, red is barely getting a turret built with their speed building from their workers, another human faction advantage. And they're about to pop out a couple extra defenders here from their mech base.
So
Okay, so I love these mechs. Just visually, guys, I absolutely think these look absolutely incredible. We see it's the Vulcan, has 500 health, looks like no shields, but it is an absolute beast. So it looks like very much that red was doing fast expand with more tech, and you had blue that was rushing early attacking units. They killed a lot of workers, so I would put blue at a huge advantage. One little tip I would have for you guys is whenever you're starting out, let's say you get into this alpha or early beta, wherever we're at, and the game isn't finalized, unless you have a definitive build order, it's much better to build somewhat conservatively, especially have early defensive units, because most players, when the game is just coming out, are going to rush. They're going to do exactly what blue is doing.
we got these huge mechs, and I mean, just visually, it looks like they are countering the heck out of these blue infantry, but can these red mechs fit through the forest?
No, they're too big to go through. They're heavy units. They're designed to use their
Okay, so you have the light units can go through the forest, the heavy units cannot.
chain
Good.
guns to go through groups of enemies, but they can't fit through the light forest, which blue knew and used to his advantage.
Okay, so we're in mid-game. This is normally where you make some big tech decisions. What's red up to?
You're seeing red commit to a tech path that gives them big battlefield mechs and air units like this evac.
Okay, so this is interesting, guys. This looks very similar to StarCraft 2. Again, the more and more I keep talking about it, the more and more I'm seeing that this is taking like 80% from StarCraft 2. Even though the visual aesthetic is more Warcraft, maybe the pace of the game, it seems slightly slower than StarCraft 2, and I think that's by design, because one of the biggest criticisms of StarCraft 2 was that things would die too quickly. This looks very much like a medevac or like a warp prism for Protoss. It's obviously got units loaded. These are probably the two Vulcans, because you can see there's actually two individual units loaded up. Really like the design elements. I think it's very clean. I think it's easy to understand. Like, I'm pretty sure that when this drops, it's going to drop two large units. So let's see.
And it looks like they're just dropping right on top of blue. Who's
Yep, and there's the Vulcan.
killing a chicken? What's the chicken there, Tim?
And I want to explain, guys, I have never seen this trailer. This is my first time watching it. So, you know, you can see the UI elements are awesome because they're very clear. And anybody that's played RTS before is going to pretty much immediately know. Now, this is interesting, and this is not in StarCraft 2. It looks like these Vulcans can actually inflict status elements. It looks like there's like a confusion or a stun on these, looks like biomarines. So that's very interesting. You can see there's a status element here and a status element here. So very, very interesting. Even though there was a lot of like active cast effects in StarCraft 2, there wasn't anything too much, maybe like a stasis field from an Oracle that had this effect, not just for like an individual unit. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a giant chicken with a Viking helmet on it. Use your imagination. Stormgate's in pre-alpha, and that's art that we haven't gotten to yet, but imagine it as a big
giant
Mad Max
chicken.
Raider.
It's the most threatening placeholder art for now. And oh, I see red diving onto blue, and hey, picking back up into the air transport. That's some classic high-level micro.
It is, and it's really important for Stormgate that we maintain a high skill ceiling so that
So I really like them talking about the skill ceiling, guys. Ultimately, an RTS is going to live and die by its skill ceiling. Even though lowering the skill floor is ideal, you would normally want a game like, if you took an ideal game, guys, and it could be perfect, you would want to have a low skill floor and extremely high skill ceiling. That's very hard to do. When you lower the floor, you almost always lower the ceiling. But Yeah, this is classic micro. One thing I did want to notice though is that it didn't look like the Marines were actually shooting the like medevac or transport ship. That is either a mistake, like blue should have been shooting that shield, shooting the ship, or they cannot shoot up. And I'm not sure which of these two. These looks like the tanks again that are doing like AoE damage, and this looks like the medic that's healing these Marines or Marine equivalents.
Players can express themselves on the battlefield by maneuvering and how they interact with the battlefield.
And here we have the final fight of the game, and it looks like blue is coming up against those mechs. Red is trapped on the other side of the trees. Oh, wait, they can...
So this is an interesting thing. These artillery tanks shoot shells, but you can see that they're not hit scan. It's very unsimilar to like a tank where the projectile speed is super fast. The projectile pace for these tanks or artillery units is really slow. You can see that blue projectile slowly moving across. I think overall the game pace is why people are saying, like friends of mine are saying, that it's closer to Warcraft 3, because you can tell the game pace is considerably lower than StarCraft 2 for good and for bad. I kind of like it because I do agree with some of the criticisms that StarCraft 2 started to feel less strategic at a certain point and actually felt much more about reactions, or that certain units like Disruptors or, other units, Widow Mines, could be way too OP, especially for lower ranks. But let's see what happens here. It looks like blue did so much economic damage in the early game. Generally, guys, economy is what wins RTS, and this is the classic scenario. Blue dominated, and Dario TLO, this is the first time I actually talked about this up here. Dario TLO, he was a professional StarCraft 2 player. So Dario is a very, very famous player. So it's not really surprising, guys. Professional StarCraft 2 player, probably versus somebody in the internal development team or something. I've never heard Kevin Monk Dong, so I'm not sure who he is, but yeah, let's go on.
Blast through them now, and blue's dodging these enormous shots, and we can also see blue swarming in from both sides. This is not looking good for red.
No, it's...
So we can see the Marines or these human units actually getting healed back here. So that's probably from that medic. Ultimately, Red just was too greedy early game and took way too much worker damage. I really like how we seen when the artillery actually did hit, it did an absolute shit ton of damage versus the bio, but the projectile speed is so slow. One thing I do like, guys, I was not a big fan of the Terran bio and Stim Pack. It's a very cool effect, but a lot of people, it's on as fact, guys. In StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, thought that Terran was actually the strongest race. That's my personal belief anyway, and that's why the term Tasagi was made. But anyway, I like that the Terran bio is slower, and the pace of the game seems a little bit slower. So micro is more impactful in the sense that you have time to actually make tactical decisions.
Pretty grim. Red is on the ropes right here, and they've been outmaneuvered. They're caught in the corner here between two different forces coming in with a pincer.
Man,
and there's the classic GG.
The most classic ending to an RTS game, GG. Get Tastosis on that stat. Outside of 1v1, what's coming up for Stormgate?
What you've seen today is just the tip of the iceberg. We have so much more in store. We're going to be revealing a bunch of stuff about Stormgate the rest of this year. We're introducing new modes. We have a 3-player versus AI cooperative mode. We have team.
So I want to pause there, guys, and talk about the free player versus AI. One thing that a lot of people criticized StarCraft 2, and they probably criticized it for good reason, is that they didn't put in the cooperative play until much too late. That and not being free to play is what pretty much put it behind other games like League of Legends that actually came out almost exactly around the same time. In StarCraft 2, guys, for those of you that don't know, to give you a little bit of a history background, was actually as big as like League of Legends in the early days. But for a variety of factors, difficulty of play, being a paid game versus free to play, it got heavily outscaled. So I like this free player versus AI mode. This isn't something I would personally be interested that much, but a lot of people love co-op. It's a huge thing in StarCraft 2. It's honestly one of the reasons the game is still alive today, or at least partly alive. And yeah, so I think that's a great decision. Absolutely great decision.
Based competitive modes. We're going to be sharing information about our storyline and campaign. We have new factions beyond the humans that you just saw today.
But Tim, What if I want to play the game right now?
If you want to play the game as soon as possible, you wish list Stormgate on Steam and you go to playstormgate.com to sign up for the beta. We're starting closed testing in July.
So guys, again, like I said, this is not going to be my last video. I'm going to be making these all the time as new content comes out. I would eventually want to be doing a daily where I talk about this stuff every day, just like Day 9 did back in the day. But for now, as new content comes out, as I hear new news, I'm going to be doing these updates. And like I said, I am absolutely signed up for the beta and the content creator program. So definitely, if you like this, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I will be doing a absolute crap ton of content for this game and trying to hit Evo Masters or Grandmasters when this game comes out. Try to get the highest rank I can.
Once again, go to Steam and wishlist Stormgate. Tim, thank you so much again for joining us, not just to talk about the 1v1 footage you shared, but the future content plans of Stormgate. It makes the RTS players' dreams come true. Which might not be your dreams. I mean, your dreams might be filled with gloriously grimy Deus Ex-inspired sci-fi.
Okay, guys, and that looks like pretty much the end of the video. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to give my final thoughts now. I think the game looks incredible. I really love the gameplay. It looks like 80 to 90% like StarCraft 2, but the art style is much more like Warcraft 3, and the pace of play is much more like Warcraft 3. I think that was a great decision. Like I said, one of the biggest things I think that was a flaw with StarCraft 2 was that it was too fast-paced for the majority. Even though I like that personally, I recognize that you need a healthy player population. And if the game is too fast-paced and people feel like I play 10 minutes and then lose in 2 seconds, that's not going to be healthy for the player population. I also think going free to play right from the beginning is going to build a big community, guys. And so, like I said, please hit that like, please hit that sub. I will be covering this game extensively coming up, very, very extensively, guys. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please leave in the comments, tell me what you guys thought about the video. I personally am very excited to cover this game. It looks incredible. It did have a few things I didn't like. One of the things I think that was a little bit weird was, you know, we still don't know how many other factions are going to be out in the game. I'm hearing that eventually they're going to release 3 to 4, but for right now it looks like we're just seeing the human faction. So a lot of things that make a great RTS is having asynchrony and having multiple factions that are very, very much different from each other. That's one of the things that makes an RTS truly successful. So I think that's very important. That's what Age of Empires 4 did not do right, was that a lot of the factions felt very samey, like they were just reskins. So I think that's not super good. But the actual gameplay, the command card, the layout, it's very clean, guys. It looks awesome. And so I'm really excited to do some content on it. So again, guys, this is going to be wrapping up the video. Thank you guys for joining me. Please hit that like. Please hit that sub. See you guys next time.